lovely people. Thanks for coming out of the sunshine. It's awfully tempting just to stay out there and soak it up, isn't it? I'm Christa Wessel. I'm the morning host at All Classical Portland, which is a preset in all your radios, right? Good. And thank you for contributing during our recent fall fundraiser, whatever you do to support the station. It's so important that we have it right here, so thank you for your financial help. This fella is somebody you may not have met before. His name is Paul Kim, and he is the Oregon Symphony's resident conductor.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
Did you know that the Oregon Symphony had a conductor that wasn't Carlos? Will you explain to us what the resident conductor position is and how new you are to that position?
Let's start with how new I am to this position. I'm pretty brand spanking new, I would say. About 2 months ago, I arrived in Portland. And I think when Carlos said it, it summed up very clearly that he expects me to be the number 2 conductor in the company.
Don't even think about number 1.
Exactly. Which means I have to be another face of the organization, be available when needed in his absence, make decisions accordingly, and be able to perform my duties as, not just as a conductor, but also as an administrator, and to be able to communicate with you better, I would say.
So if you've been to the kids' concert that just happened last weekend, or ABBA, or Steve Martin.
We started the season with ABBA, and then we did another special concert with Steve Martin. I hope you were there, because it was hilarious. It was unbelievable. I would say that was actually the highlight of my career, sharing the stage with Steve Martin. And of course, I took a picture with Steve Martin, put it on Facebook to get as many likes as possible. And
so a nice, fun start to your time here on the podium.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's also part of my duty, handling special concerts. I do most of the special concerts. As you know, Carlos did one with Meow Meow, but I do most of that. Jeff Tyzek, of course, has Pop's concerts. So we have many conductors here.
Now, Paul Kim is not conducting today's concert. There is a guest conductor who'll be on the podium today. His name is Andres Orozco Estrada. He was born in Colombia, has spent a number of years in Vienna. They had a rehearsal this morning, the orchestra and the conductor, so he's taking a little breather before the concert, so that's why Paul is stepping in today. But it's so nice to be able to talk with you, because we get so few opportunities to talk to the Oregon Symphony's resident conductor, mainly because you're in the shadows a lot. Your job is to listen to, you go to all the rehearsals, you wait in the wings in case anybody needs you last minute?
Yes, just like today. But I'm, of course, happy to be in the spotlight. But that's, you may think that conductors' life is so glamorous and, the fame and fortune. But that's not true. I mean, if you think of the hours of preparation, works, rehearsals we put in, even not just before the concerts, but way before, when we started training in music. I mean, that's not pretty, I tell you. It's definitely not the kind of profession you want to get into for that fame and fortune, unfortunately. Of course, it's nice to be recognized. By the way, I can tell you one thing. The other day, I was walking down the street, and a group of kids stopped me in the middle of the street, and they said, "Oh, can we take a picture of you?" Because they're doing some kind of like a celebrity look-alike search.
Who do you look like?
I said, "Oh, you mean Paul Kim?" No, but I think they were looking for a guy maybe from the Asian guy from The Walking Dead or something. I think, but that just came to my mind because I think the premiere is tonight, right, or something.
I came to the children's concert, was it last weekend? It's so much fun, and a lot of adults come to the kids' concert. They are so much fun. I would recommend it to anyone. But in the lobby afterwards, there were a lot of kids running around asking Paul Kim for his autograph. I've never seen anything cuter. It was sweet.
That was really cool.
So let's talk about your path to being the resident conductor of the Oregon Symphony. Did you?
Okay, let's get comfortable.
Did you, from a very young age,
Yes.
want to have a baton in your hand, or what was your musical journey like?
I started my musical path on the piano, actually. And then I moved on to violin because I saw someone play the violin. I said, okay, I can do that. Okay, that sounded a little arrogant, but I said, I would like to do that. But then I think it was when I was about 7 years old, I saw a conductor. In fact, I think it was not even a conductor, it was a violinist who was leading an orchestra in the middle, conducting and playing at the same time. And I said, I want to be that. And I think my mom thought I meant a violinist, but it was actually the conductor, the man standing in the middle, to be surrounded by music and to be involved with all the players who are on stage.
So, but violin is what you ended up pursuing for most of your life, right?
Exactly. Up until I graduated from the Curtis Institute of Music, I think I was about 20 years old. That's when I had to, of course, any young people would have to make a decision what path to take exactly. And I struggled with it for quite some time because I really tried to do both. And it's impossible. I mean, conducting is a completely different profession, another animal, there's no way I could do both. Of course, there are musicians who do both and do both exceedingly well, but they're great musicians, and I don't know what to say about myself. But yeah, I made the decision, and then I just packed up my stuff and went off to Europe. My first destination was Amsterdam, partly because I was kind of lazy back then and didn't want to speak another language. So, and they spoke fabulous English, I tell you, probably better English than mine. And I ended up in Amsterdam, also partly because, of course, the Concertgebouw, Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra is an amazing tradition, rich and deep tradition they have there. It's something you don't get in this country. Of course, we have our own traditions, but it's something that I think it's essential to every young conductor's lives to be exposed to those kind of things, to be closer to what they have in Europe. And I spent about a little more than a year there, which was
Studying conducting?
I was enrolled in school, but I was more interested in getting to know the orchestra better, Concertgebouw Orchestra. I live basically across the street from the hall, and there are many there are many stories coming from that, of course. For instance, being a hungry student musician, I really wanted to gain access to all the rehearsals and all the guest orchestras that come in. And there was one instance when the Berlin Phil came, and the tickets were about 120 euros back then. There's no way I could afford it, nor did I want to. So what I did was, I knew the bus was coming in around 6 o'clock before the concert. I waited outside the hall with a nice looking, like a black briefcase that looks like an instrument case. And the musicians coming out of the bus, they started coming out off the bus, and then, started to march into the hall. So I joined them, saying, yeah. Walked right past security. And I tell you, it was wonderful because I got to stay there to see the rehearsals and the concert as well. There was one empty seat in the house. I was like, bird's eye, that's me.
I will say security here is a little bit tighter than that.
I think so, yeah.
But what an opportunity to just kind of soak up some great world-class music making, being creative about doing that.
Well, when you're a young conductor, you have to take every opportunity you can to just better yourself. I mean, you can't take any chances. You can't let those go.
So from Amsterdam, you came to Indiana University, right?
That's not true. There are many
Many little
places.
stops on the way.
Yes, and then I went to Vienna and lived there for maybe half a year, and that was also wonderful. I mean, just that's another great tradition. And then I went to, where did I go? Houston to go to Rice University to finally pursue a degree in conducting. Maybe you probably don't know this, but conducting curriculum doesn't start at bachelor's degree. It starts at master's, meaning you have to be, in some ways proficient in your instrument, and then you should be, which is correct actually, you should pursue conducting. So I went to Houston, spent 2 years there. I was in Baltimore for another 2 to study with a certain teacher. And then I went to Indiana University, which was absolutely, maybe I shouldn't say that, because that was the best time of my life in terms of education. My teachers, David Efron and Arthur Fagan, who were absolutely phenomenal in cultivating me and helping me get through all the ups and downs as one would expect, a young conductor would have. And also the institution in the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music. As a whole, it provides such a training ground for young conductors. I mean, they have an opera department that's like, any major opera house in the States. They put on 4 productions a year. I was heavily involved with that, being the associate instructor, meaning I was actually doing a lot of opera stuff as well. And then they, of course, have about 3 or 4 orchestras, which means many opportunities for me. And they also have ballet company.
You got to dabble in a lot of things at Indiana University.
Yeah, what I do here, it's nothing.
Conducting one orchestra, sometimes conducting one orchestra.
Right.
But you talked about Indiana University as if that were done with, but you actually left IU before you officially got your doctorate, right? Just to take this job?
Right. I mean, this wonderful opportunity came along, and I had to leave with 1 semester left in my coursework.
Yeah. So what do? Will you eventually wrap that up, do you think? Can you do that simultaneously with this? How does that work?
It's too much money. No, you have to be realistic about these things. It will help me down the road, but like Carlos said, now you're in serious conducting business.
So why do you need the degree?
Right. If I wanted to pursue an academic position, maybe, but right now I'm just so heavily involved with this organization and helping in many different things. So I'm not thinking twice about that right now.
So if you just come in, this is Paul Kim. He is the Oregon Symphony's resident conductor. We actually won't see him on the podium today. The Oregon Symphony has a guest conductor who's in from Vienna, who's actually in the 2014-15 season will be taking over the helm of the Houston Symphony, where you did some school. And he'll be also leading the Frankfurt Symphony Orchestra in 2014-15 as well. He's got 2 big posts coming up. He's a guy to watch. And you've been watching him, too.
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell from the reactions from the orchestra that he is really good. I mean, it's always a joy to watch another young conductor. I think he's about a few years older than me.
35.
Yeah, 35. There you go. Very young. That's very young in conductor's age. So it's really nice to see someone who's so so deeply involved in music personally. And of course, when people see young conductors, they say, "Oh, yeah, he's great. He's young and he's enthusiastic and he's passionate." But being young and enthusiastic is not really a skill. It's a privilege. No, seriously. But Andreas goes beyond that. That's what makes him special. I mean, of course, he's young and energetic, he's charismatic, but he just dives right into the music and gets everyone involved on stage, and you will hear it today. It's absolutely fabulous.
Another bit of trivia about our guest conductor today is that before he leaves Vienna for Frankfurt and Houston, those posts there, he is still in Vienna conducting an orchestra that used to be Carlos's orchestra before Carlos came to Oregon. So there's kind of a nice parallel there. They've both conducted the same orchestra in Vienna and are now here in Oregon. So a question about the duties of the resident conductor of the Oregon Symphony. You're obviously present at all the rehearsals, so you know, in case you have to step in, what's going on. So you're studying the scores just as if you were going to have to conduct it. You've been studying up, you've been prepared in the event that you have to step in. So when Carlos is conducting, say, and you're watching how he rehearses an orchestra, understanding how he's interpreting the music, then there's a guest conductor here today who's making his own interpretations of the music today. If you ever have to step in, and you've been watching how Carlos conducts, or you've been watching how Andres conducts, if you have to step in, do you follow what the orchestra has been rehearsing? In other words, do you have to conduct in Carlos's style or in Andres' style? Or when you get your moment in the spotlight, do you just say, I'm here, I'm doing it my way?
I think the key word, when she said, the key word was follow. Are you kidding? A conductor who follows? God forbid. There are certain things that should be left alone, because otherwise it will just rock everything apart a little too much. But it's not just someone who's stepping in, but also Andres or Carlos, when they're conducting in a performance, they don't know what's going to happen. And of course, they have some kind of idea, something that they rehearse. They have a set path. But what happens in between is completely unpredictable. And it's up to the conductor to decide at that moment what to do with it. That's the decision-making skill. So they are kind of making it up as they go along as well. So you can bet I'll be making stuff up as I go along.
You mentioned that our guest conductor today, Andres Orozco Estrada, is young, as are you. Do any of your peers from your time studying conducting have positions like this? Is this typical for somebody this young to have a job like this?
I believe it's not very typical, actually. I can't even count the number of resident conductor positions in this country. Mostly there are either assistant or associate conductors. When you're an assistant conductor, you're not as heavily involved with the orchestra.
So the difference between assistant conductor and resident conductor.
Uh-huh.
And head conductor. That's confusing.
It is. That's why Carlos said, number 2 conductor. But yes, I mean, some of the duties are shared, and it's not that easy to make that distinction between them. But of course, music director, and then the resident conductor, and then associate or assistant conductor. So
as resident conductor, you're actually able to participate in some day-to-day things. You were just telling me that you're sitting at, right now, the next season is being planned out, right? That was that 2014, 2015
That's correct.
season for the Oregon Symphony. And you're at that table planning with Carlos and the artistic
Yes.
staff?
Inputs and is just coming up with ideas, drawing up what I would like to do in the future and those kind of stuff.
So when's the next time we get to see you on stage conducting yourself?
Hold on, let me check my calendar.
I'm surprised you don't have that committed to memory. Really?
I live day to day, okay? It's just, I mean, it's just a lot of work. The next one should be, it should be another special concert, if I'm not mistaken. Or the kids' concert, the second one.
Well, I think that's interesting, that you're not living for those moments. You're like, well, yeah, that's part of the job, but the bulk of your job is being support.
Look, I mean, with all things involved, you would drive yourself crazy if you're just, you know, like that. You just gotta keep calm and take things as they come and make the best out of every moment.
Well, the program that we're in store for today is a lovely one, and is a varied one, too. You can see that the Debussy, we've got Stravinsky, and we've got a gorgeous, long, heavy symphony by Schubert. Now, if you had to step up and rescue the proceedings today, if something happened and you had to step up and conduct one of those pieces, which one?
I will conduct them all.
That's the conductor answer, right? Well, what are the challenges of them all as a conductor from that perspective?
Well, Debussy, for instance, it's not orchestrated by Debussy, but by his close friend Bousset. And although Debussy approved the orchestration, you know, it's to get to the color, the language of Debussy as close as possible, and it's in stark contrast to what comes out after that, which is Stravinsky Violin Concerto. I would say the Stravinsky Violin Concerto is very much like a chamber orchestra symphony with violin obbligato. There's nothing that is, you know, too soloistic. It's almost as if Stravinsky had painted something, and he filled in the blanks afterwards, and it's absolutely wonderful. Very interesting story about that is there's a signature chord in the beginning of every movement. I think they called it a passport chord or something, but it's in a very awkward position for the violinist, and it has this distance of 11 notes, right? Usually when violinists play 10th is pretty much the limit, 10 notes in between. That it looks like this, okay? 11. So when Stravinsky wrote out those first chords and showed it to his friend Samuel Dushkin, who premiered the work, Dushkin said, "No way, no way." And then Dushkin went home and thought about it. I said, maybe. So he was really happy that he was able to put in those chords. But it's a very peculiar chord. You know, it has that open resonance that just rings, and it's unmistakable. And of course, Schubert. Oh, Schubert.
That's much the reaction I have to the Symphony No. 9 too by Schubert. Oh.
You know, you might say that Schubert was not a great orchestrator or a great symphonist. But come on, he wrote 9 symphonies. How can he not be a great symphonist, right? But the 9th symphony especially, it's just very peculiar in a way that it's written out. If you look at it on the page, let me explain it this way. If you look at it on the page, there are a lot of notes. I mean, it's just going crazy, just blacks of all notes, you know, sprawling across the page, and the number of measures are ridiculous. It goes up until like some thousand, like a couple of thousand, I guess.
It's a long symphony.
Yeah. So when you start rehearsing, you start to sound like a quarterback, like 2046, you know, and then you go. But it's written that way, so when you listen to it, it doesn't sound that complicated. It sounds like a beautiful song, you know, just blossoming or just dying, and there's so many courses it takes, especially the third movement, which is a scherzo movement. You know, scherzo, of course, is specialized by Beethoven, but the trio section, which is also the middle section of the scherzo movement, that is my favorite piece of music of all time, because it just transports you from Portland to somewhere else that you'll never see on this planet, in this world. It's just unbelievable. It's this warm feeling of, you know, like wanting to get everyone gathered around a fireplace and sing Kumbaya or something. It's just, it's a feeling. You see, why am I talking about Kumbaya? Because, look, because it's indescribable in words, but when you listen to it, it gives you that feeling, and it's absolutely joyous.
Schubert's Ninth Symphony is such a gorgeous, lush, melodic, tuneful thing just to sink into for almost 50 minutes. It is a great symphony. Stravinsky Concerto can be a little bit challenging, but what a reward to watch the violinist too, our great guest violinist today, just working away at that piece. And then a nice, gentle appetizer in the Debussy. It's a great program.
Yes, it is. Augustin, I don't know if he's been here already, but he is a phenomenal violinist. I heard him in Kansas City when I was covering for Kansas City Symphony, actually. That was about 5 years back, maybe, or 3 or 4 years back. And he played Dvorak Concerto there. And I mean, I knew this guy would just make it to the top, and he is fabulous. What a musician.
And what a musician right here. This is the resident conductor of the Oregon Symphony, Paul Kim. Thank you for joining me today. It's so great to get to know you a little bit.
Thank you, everyone. Christa, Wessel.
Thank you for coming.